Welcome back. The South Dakota High School football regular season wrapped up yesterday. A lot of exciting action. I personally was at Dakota Valley at T, but to talk a little bit more about all this stuff heading into the playoffs, bringing Jason Andera, our high school expert. We're going to talk about all this tonight on Varsity Sports Live, but we figured we'd give you a little preview. So what do we need to know, Jandy?
Let's get the best of the best. Let's give you a ride through all the games that we were at in our rundown. Let's get started in North Dakota, where the games actually started on Wednesday night, and these were the last games of the regular season. Fargo South and Cheyenne played for the last home playoff spot, and Cheyenne gets a dramatic win on the last play, winning 21-20. West Fargo, they keep rolling. Here's Joe Pistorius running it in for a touchdown, and they rolled up Fargo Davies 48-8. Century and Legacy. Century hasn't lost since the first game of the season, and they are on quite a roll right now, 23-13, even though they were visiting. And Grand Forks Central in a thriller against Fargo North. It's a 1-point win, so that settles up the regular season in North Dakota. They're fully into playoff mode now, but in South Dakota, this was the big game. The winner of this one would get the 3 spot, the loser would get the 4 spot. You see Braden Peterson going for 340 yards, lifting his team to a victory and that 3 spot. Roosevelt, no problem, had 50 points by halftime against Watertown. Gets the 58-16 win. And the nightcap at Howard Wood wasn't much closer. Look at this interception, by the way. Head over heels, Logan Utek into the end zone. You gotta look at that again. 64-7, and they leave Lincoln on the outside looking in. Stevenson Central, intra-city battle to end up the season. Michael Norman brings one down, and the Stevens Raiders look like they might be contenders. 41-7 win. Harrisburg and Yankton, still no Hunter Headley. Troy Connect throws an interception. Cameron Krejci does the rest. That was one of 3 return touchdowns for the Yankton Bucks, who go on a little bit of a high note into the playoffs with a 34-7 win. Del Rapids Madison, this one figured to be close. It lived up to the billing, 38-21. Madison pulls away late to take out Del Rapids and give them their first loss since the beginning of the season. 2, Dakota Valley, who also got a win in their last game of the regular season, 35-6. T-Area stumbling a little bit into the playoffs, but Dakota Valley finishes off the regular season unbeaten. Todd County was playing right with St. Thomas More until the end of the game, and then St. Thomas More turned on the Jets. Their sophomore quarterback went crazy in a 70-32 win. Both of those 2 teams did make the playoffs, however. And then a crazy one at Bob Young Field. Sioux Falls Christian scores on the last play of the game, which happened to be in overtime, to get a win to advance to the quarterfinals. Howard and Chester played close in the first half, and the Tigers pulled away in the second half for a 42-15 win. Harriet Selby, I've got the scores switched around there, but Corsica Stickney was the one that dominated 56-6. And Arlington Lake Preston gets an 18-0 shutout against Baltic for one of the big playoff games in the first round. So a lot of action last night, and now we're into quarterfinal rounds, which start on Thursday of next week. All the teams are playing on the same night. Yeah, definitely an exciting time of year. Obviously, the smaller classes have started playoffs already, but let's go through all of them starting. We're going to go big to small Let's go big to small.
Starting with 11 AAA. Jandy, can anyone beat Washington?
You know, Washington hit their stride at the beginning of the season. Had a little lull in the middle of the season, and by lull, I mean they played a couple of close games and actually didn't have to lead throughout. But Tupac Capella now has had back-to-back 200-yard weeks. They threw up another 50 points before halftime against Lincoln. This team is rolling. The answer to that question, I don't think anybody can beat them. Roosevelt is playing a little better. O'Gorman looks good, but they have their flaws. Brandon Valley might be the team to watch. They have really turned it on as of late. But overall, Washington is just too good for the rest of this field.
They're fun to watch. But moving to 11 AA, who do you feel like is going to step it up? Because right now I feel like some teams are kind of stepping down, and now is not the time. I mean, you're supposed to peak at this point in the season.
There's only one team really that's peaking right now, and that's the Yankton Bucks. However, Yankton, even though they've actually won a couple games lately, they haven't won on the road all season long, and they have their first game on the road in Douglas. That's going to be a tough place to win on the playoffs. But they did take out Harrisburg, however, last night in a big way, 34-7. But teams like Pierre lost on their last game of the season. Peyton Zabel got a shoulder injury in that game. You talk about Mitchell, who lost 2 weeks ago to Harrisburg, and now Harrisburg was pretty much kind of let their season fall through their fingers. They've lost 4 games now in total. So will anybody step up? I mean, Right now, Yankton might be playing the best of anybody, but to go out and say Yankton's the best team in this class might be a little far-fetched. We're going to really have to see how Peyton Zabel responds to that shoulder injury and if he's able to carry Pierre, because he means more to his team than I think anybody else in the state.
Yeah, that's a big loss for them. But moving to 11A, I was at this game. Dakota Valley at T. And Dakota Valley, I mean, undefeated on the season, but I feel like they're getting a little overshadowed because Madison is undefeated too.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Dakota Valley?
I'll tell you what, Madison has come in the last couple of years and put a really strong program together, but under the radar, Dakota Valley, they've not exactly played an easy schedule, and they have gone through it undefeated. They've beat teams like Tri-Valley. They beat Del Rapids earlier in the year. They took T out in the end of the year. The only really quality team in this class they haven't beaten is Madison, and that's why there'll still be some question marks. How good is this Dakota Valley team? I'll tell you what, though, they have a very balanced team as far as running and passing go. Their defense is really outstanding, and you see they make some big plays in the return game as well. So Dakota Valley, a very, very stout team. I would not put anything past them. I think we might see a Dakota Valley-Madison final in the Dakota Dome in about a couple weeks here.
Well, that would be exciting.
It would be.
All right, moving on to 11B, some close games last night. So kind of talk about those.
Yeah, Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central had a tough game, winning only 13-10. And then this game, we had Sioux Falls Christian playing Canton. This is one of the teams that they've had problems with this year. Only one loss on the season for Sioux Falls Christian, and that was to Sioux Valley, an undefeated team in their class. Other than that, they've rolled everybody up, but they've had problems with Canton, and Canton came out, and even Jake Pettengill said at the end of the game, I think Canton was the better team on this night, but somehow, late in the game, they snuck down the field, ran the ball when they needed to, and punched in a game-winning touchdown. They had 2 tries from inside the 1-yard line. The first one they got stopped. The second one was actually a fumble recovery to win the football game. So a very close call for the number 2 seed in the entire class. Great win for the Sioux Falls Christian Chargers.
Well, it's interesting to see teams like that. Like I said earlier, you're supposed to be peaking at this time, but then you have those other teams that just kind of sneak in. So
always
exciting stuff. But moving on to 9AA. This is similar to the Washington question, but this time talking about the Gregory Gorillas, my favorite mascot ever. Can anyone beat Gregory?
You know what? This Gregory team just keeps showing how good they are week in and week out. First round of the playoffs, scored 50 points and got a huge win. I don't think there's anybody in 9 AAA that can compete with this Gregory team. I know Bonhomme is good, but I just don't think there's anybody on their level.
All right, well, 9A, any surprise teams to watch for?
You know what? I'm looking for a couple of surprise teams. The number 4 seed, Howard Tigers, look pretty good, and they've only had 1 loss throughout the season. They could be a team to watch. We saw what they did against Chester last night, where they have 3 or 4 different guys who can run the ball. I think they could make a serious run at the number 1 seed in the next in the semifinals and make it to the Dome. Also, watch out for Britton Hecla. I think that's another team that could sneak into the Dome without many people noticing.
And then really quick, 9B. How many title contenders are there, Jandy?
Yeah, in 9B, I think there are 4 or 5 legitimate contenders and a couple of undefeated teams. Wall and Harding County are both undefeated. I don't think they're part of the mix of title contenders. I think you've got Cologne that is a team that could win it. Coleman Egan for sure could make a run. So a lot of good teams in this class.
I'm excited to watch the playoffs. It's always an exciting time.
Excited for Varsity Sports Live tonight with you, Kelly.
10:30 p.m. Road to the Dome, though. I remember when Rush Millen's team for Madison was going Road to the Dome. We're all
Everybody's
really
thinking that right now.
All right, well, very exciting. Thanks so much,
You bet.
Andy. Looking forward to Varsity Sports Live tonight. Well, when we come back, one Summit League men's basketball team journeyed across the pond over the summer. See how they prepared and why they chose to venture overseas. That's next on Midco Sports Tonight.